Welcome to another episode of the Read Pile. I have here two new volumes of Sakamoto Days. You can see the video here where I review volumes 1 and 2. Volume 4 came out somewhat recently, I want to say in September. It's currently the end of October. This video is probably going up in, well, November. But I missed Volume 3 completely. I almost missed Volume 4. I wouldn't have known it was coming, except it showed up on one of my comic shop's weekly new release newsletters. So as soon as I saw that, I asked my wife, because she's the one buying these. I said, hey, do you have these? Can I borrow them? Can I read them? And she pulled them out, and as soon as I got caught up on other stuff, because I had sort of a backlog, I jumped on these. I'm very happy with this series. It's fantastic. This is basically the follow-up for me on reading Run the One Half. It's sort of an action comedy, but we'll get there. To recap, there is legendary former assassin Taro Sakamoto. He was an assassin. He retired after meeting his future wife. Together they have a daughter. He now runs a convenience store. We have Shin and Lu, former assassin, former triad. They meet back in volume 1 and start working for Sakamoto. In this volume, there is this new character. He's right on page 1 here. He's kind of broke. And there is a bounty on Sakamoto. I believe it's for 1 billion yen. It says in here somewhere. But he goes to Sakamoto's convenience store trying to collect on this bounty. Sees Sakamoto here, but he's got a picture from before he gained weight, so he doesn't actually recognize Sakamoto. That's where the comedy starts. But there's this airsoft competition, and they wind up joining an airsoft competition. So there's 3 former assassins playing airsoft in, surprisingly, a mall, and it's just brilliant. It's so good. So good. I loved it. Just immediately awesome. After that, we get a chapter where these guys in suits come looking for Shin, and because Lu is wearing his apron that day, they wind up kidnapping her instead of him. He, I should have mentioned, has psychic powers. He can read minds. And we get sort of an origin story in this volume for him. He was part of a lab when he was much younger. He was experimented on, and as a result, he winds up with psychic powers. Much later, winds up becoming an assassin. So people from this lab want him back. They kidnapped the wrong person, and Shin and Mr. Sakamoto chase after. They're trying to get her back. That leads to this really amazing highway fight scene. There's a shootout. It's fantastic. But there is a guy in here. I saw him a second ago. Here he is. He has an invisible suit. Leads to some complexities later. But they wind up going after her. And the lab is actually underneath this museum. And I want to show this off too. It's so good. But there's a fight scene with a robot bear, and yeah, there's a robot bear fight. Oh my god, it's so good. And then following that, there's then a robot skeleton, also with a laser in his mouth, and it's so ridiculous. It's so amazing. I loved every second of it. But it ultimately leads to this here. So they defeat these 2 really guards at the gate, and then it comes to this. And as soon as I got to this point, I'm like, oh no. I've read this story so many times before with this multi-level, and then there's going to be a boss on each floor, and you need to get all the way to the bottom to fight the final boss. And I was kind of disappointed in this, but that was misfounded. So you can see here, they're on floor 1, really basement 1. After getting in, defeating the bear and the T-Rex, Lu is being kept here on floor 4, and we've got 2 of the bosses here on floor 5. But all of this, it's not, I guess ordinarily you would expect them to fight their way through, and I thought it was going to be a long series, that it was going to take a long time for all of this to resolve, but they take a shortcut accidentally. Sakamoto winds up going through a trap door, falling all the way to floor 5. Meanwhile, Shin is fighting his own battle, so there are 2 simultaneous boss fights. Both are great. And then these 2 wind up getting taken out by a third party, just immediately wiped out. So this whole thing wraps up at the same time rather than going through it sequentially. Really, there's 2 fights instead of 5. I'm glad that it didn't turn into a huge thing and we got back to comedy relatively quickly, because in here, after all this fighting, they wind up going to a bathhouse, and that is simply amazing. The bathhouse is run by another assassin that's trying to kill Sakamoto, trying to get the money, and he turns the bathhouse into a weapon, and that whole sequence, just amazing. I loved every second of it. So thankfully, there is plenty of action for those that want the action. Oh, I gotta show you this. So there is plenty of action. There is also plenty of comedy. But one of the absolute best sequences, my favorite out of both of these volumes, is Mr. Sakamoto is fighting a guy on a train, and it's a pretty spectacular fight scene. But it comes to a point where there's another train coming. Mr. Sakamoto gets blasted out of this train by the other guy. So there he is, about to be splatted. He ends up crashing through the window. He runs the length of the train, jumps off the back onto the original train, and then shows up. Like, it's clearly ridiculous, and yet it's one of the best. I mean, it's short. It's only 3 pages, but my God, that's an amazing scene. So yes, I love the series. I'll come back for another video whenever volume 6 comes out, which I'm sure my wife will be buying, but I absolutely recommend this series. It's extremely entertaining.